So you're good to go, Sergio. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Igor. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the panel from the Primeira Escola Internacional LatAm Engenharia de Software. I'm just reading the Portuguese version of the school. This school is supported by ACM Sigsoft, and maybe you conduct the panel in English, but please feel free to talk and ask questions and write in the chat in Portuguese or Spanish, and we will help you and translate everything. So let's try to keep a little bit as informal as possible so everybody can chill a little bit. So the title of the panel is Job Market, Where to Find Opportunities. I have just a couple of slides. I am Sergio Soares, for those who don't know me. I was a young researcher once, as far as I recall. It was 2004 when I finished my PhD. Now it's a long time ago. Oh my God! It's just when we start to count years, it's a little bit hush, but that's it. At the time, there were some, maybe I can even say a lot of opportunities for young PhDs in Brazil. It was kind of easy to find a position, at least in academia, or for sure in academia. That's the main source of positions at that time. And however, I just was looking for this data today. My PhD defense was the number 58 in the program here in Pernambuco. So a little bit then 6 years ago from that, we had around 100 more PhDs graduated. And 11 years after that, almost 400 new PhDs. This is in a single university. Of course, I understand we have a huge program over here, but it gives you a perspective of how the market should be right now. I'm sure we have a lot of opportunities in the market, a lot of new enterprises, new firms with innovation, and they need doctors, they need researchers, as well as the universities. But the idea here is to discuss a little bit about that. So we have 3 great people to talk with us. I'll present them in a minute. And we will have some opportunity to talk about how more diverse or how much more or different opportunities we might have for young researchers. I hope you enjoy and engage in the discussions we will have. So, as I already told you, feel free to ask questions either in Portuguese or Spanish. I'm not sure if we have any Japanese or other languages speaking people here. If you have, we will try to translate. Just hit us. So talk a little bit about the panelists. We have here David Redmild. He's a professor in the University of California at Irvine. We have some information about David here, PhD in 1992. He works with cognitive support for software developers, issue of trust and emotion affecting software teams, behavioral participants in social software development platforms, global software engineering, gender differences in brainstorming and software development, end user software development, educational challenges, learning to program. And David is also, he was also designated ACM Distinguished Scientist in 2011. So great experience. And David will bring us some of his thoughts about that in a minute. The other panelist is Ingrid Nunes. She's associate professor at the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, URGS, also known as URGS. Ingrid had her PhD in 2012 in informatics na PUC-Rio, Pontifícia Universidade Católica do Rio de Janeiro, in cooperation with the King's College London. It was a sandwich PhD, as we call here in Brazil. And Ingrid works with adaptive and self-adaptive systems, software architecture, software maintenance and evolution, model-driven development. Ingrid has, this is very interesting. This is why I point out about her biography here. She had a lot of experiences as a visiting researcher or professor in different universities. So it's a nice perspective, a nice point of view we will have from her, as the Technical University of Dartmouth and the RWTH, Aachen University in Germany. Germany, right, Ingrid? Yeah, Aachen is in Germany. That's it. So India also had they won the Google Woman in Technology Award in 2008. That's great. That's huge. And she's also a podcaster in the Fronteiras da Engenharia de Software. Just a little bit of advertisement here. It's nice. It's very interesting. I invite all of you to look for that. It's just Portuguese speaking only, right, Ingrid? But if you speak Spanish and want to try a little bit of Portuguese, go there and you can try as well. The third panelist we have is Ricardo Brito. He's incubation leader at Ericsson in Sweden. He obtained his PhD in 2017 in software engineering in the Blekinge Institute of Technology in Sweden. And he also is an adjunct lecturer at the Blekinge Institute of Technology. He works with data science and software engineering at Ericsson. And he leads innovation projects to enrich Ericsson's product and improve research and development processes in practice at Ericsson. So we have 3 people with different backgrounds, with different expertise, and I'm sure we will have a really nice moment with them. So I will hand now to David. I know he wants to show some slides. I will shut down my sharing. Please, David, go ahead and you can share and you have the floor.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Share the right screen here. All right. Everyone see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and do tell me how long should I chat?
How long do you need? How much time do you need? About
less than I think 10 minutes or less. Yeah,
that's okay. Let's go. No.
Okay. Yeah, I prepared some slides to talk about opportunities, and they're geared a little bit towards U.S. Research universities, such as Irvine, which I'm most familiar with, but many other schools across the U.S. But I find that the items I'm going to talk about are becoming more universal. So I think even if you are looking outside of the US or North America, I think you'll find some of this advice pretty helpful. And the title of the panel or theme of the panel being where to find the opportunities, but I think it's also very important to understand how to go after those opportunities and perhaps even understand some nuances about your application process. So that's where I'm going to go with my remarks today. Besides being a professor of informatics, I'm also currently the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and that focuses a lot on faculty development and things like promotions and advancement. And so I look at a lot of CVs and such. Okay, let me see if I can. There we go. So just one quick slide, and I'll make these available to the organizers, and there's a video record as well. But finding opportunities, I believe, has become much more easier these days with the internet. But I'll just point out a few websites and a few tips here very quickly. So at least within the US, one of the main websites that's become a good place to find jobs is this Higher Education Recruitment Consortium. So it may not be one that everyone's found out about yet, but you can find a lot of opportunities on here. Has good search capability, also for administrative positions if you're more senior. And I would recommend, if you go to websites, secondary websites such as this, that you also locate the original ad, which should be on the institution's website. Other educational venues, Chronicle Higher Ed is very international, I've found in the past. There's also websites for state jobs. So if you're looking at a large state university, such as California has its own website statewide for jobs in education. Professional societies, of course, like ACM and IEEE, mailing lists. I think if you're in software engineering or computer science in general, SC World is a good place to find opportunities for postdocs as well as assistant professor and other types of jobs. Very important to go to an institution's website, find the original ad, find out what you can about that. Word of mouth, tweets, talking to people at conferences. Very important here, develop an academic network. So when you're at conferences such as, well, it's a little trickier virtually, but there's still breakout rooms and such, but start to develop an academic network and, get yourself to talk to people. And the more people who know your name, the more recognized you'll be when you apply for jobs, and the more people will tell you about things as well. So one thing I thought about in preparing for the panel today was how to read an ad, because that may not be the most obvious thing early in your career. So, and one of the trickier things that sometimes people make a big mistake about is double check that the ad is for the department or program that you want at that institution. And I'll give you an example. Here at the University of California, Irvine, we have a School of Engineering and a School of Information and Computer Science. So you might find a systems job, perhaps in the School of Engineering, and a systems job at the School of Information and Computer Science. But the way you're going to be evaluated or the kinds of colleagues you're going to have could be different. So you actually want to make sure what the program or department is, that it's the right one, and that you can verify that by looking at the people involved in that program and department and what they do in their work. And sometimes you'll want to apply to both, honestly. But that's one important thing. And there will be ads sometimes in the School of Engineering as well as the School of ICS at the same time. And I'm sure this is true in other universities. One of the universities I attended, I used to joke it had 3 or even 4 computer science departments, depending on how you count it. So then that's usually the first part of the job ad. We'll talk about that. The second part will is say what areas of specialties are being looked for. At a research university, these are usually filled out pretty specifically. So instead of just saying software engineering, it'll probably say something very specific, like a few years ago, we had a position for software engineering for security. And sometimes the ads will say other areas considered, or if you see an ad, all areas of computer science, there's going to be a lot of competition. And but yeah, and some of those also appear more in teaching colleges. Okay, another thing that you might not think offhand to look at in the ad, because you're like me, then when you start out, you're just, yeah, I want a job. But there's more and more information in ads these days about other benefits. So benefits of employment or even social benefits based on the location of the institution. Some institutions have what they sometimes call family-friendly policies. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have kids, but it means that they are more friendly towards all kinds of family and extended family things. For instance, even dependent care, depending on your situation, or leaves for certain kinds of emergencies, and then certainly leaves for child rearing, adoption, and that goes for both male and female parents. So some institutions offer financial support for housing. So Southern California is very expensive, so you might want to look for that. Some rare institutions offers tuition assistance. If you have children and you've worked there a certain amount of time, then there's various types of assistance that some schools, not very many, but some offer. So that can be a benefit. Location's important too. I mean, Irvine's beautiful, as you heard before the panel began. It's near the ocean if you like activities, but I like to advise people to think about where you can relax because academia is very stressful. So if you like hiking or swimming or the desert, whatever, just think about how you're going to relax when you're not always writing paper or teaching a class. Read a lot of ads, even at places you might not be interested in, just because they might give you tidbits or hints about what could be important in negotiation later, or just looking for ads that have things that you saw. So read a lot of ads about what could be offered, and think about. Okay, I already said this. Think about where you could be happy or have outlets for the stress, or opportunities for your longer term goals. Okay. When you read an ad, you'll see you must include the following documents: cover letter, curriculum vitae, statement of research, teaching statement. More institutions are asking for inclusive excellence statements. Occasionally, they ask for service statements. I won't cover those today because for more junior jobs, they usually don't ask for this. And you can also talk about some of these things in your other statements, including research, teaching, and inclusive excellence, or diversity, as sometimes you'll see the term. They'll ask for sample research publications and letters of reference, usually 3 to 5. Okay, for assistant professor positions, 3 and postdoc positions, 3 is usually pretty sufficient. All right, and I'll go through some of these with some advice, and let me know if I'm talking a little too much. But advice on the required documents: the cover letter can be important. Usually, it's just a very short and to the point. It's like, herein is my application. Even though it's all digital now. But occasionally, an ad will ask you to comment on something. And that might be how your work so far fits into their program, or your future work will fit into their specialty program. Then the other thing that some people do in a cover letter is they might upfront explain some special personal circumstance, or perhaps confidentiality. Certainly, if you're a little more senior, you often ask that letters of reference not be asked for unless the institution becomes more serious about you. So it's not very common, but have seen things like that. For the CV, again, today it's much easier to find templates, but I would really encourage you to look at faculty around the web. Most faculty have websites, and even if it's not the most up-to-date thing, you can find example CVs. You can see what's expected at that institution. Anyway, you'll be looking at those CVs if you're applying. Make sure that honors and awards are early on, followed by publications. Those are the kinds of things that are going to be evaluated. Honors and awards catch people's attentions, including honors for theses or even special fellowships while you were a student. So these are important things not to put at the end, but closer to the beginning of the CV. Of course, publications are going to be the heart of the evaluation, at least applications at a research university. And then works under submission may also be listed, particularly for junior candidates. Some things are a little trickier to get started on. The statement of research, it's very individual because it's about your research, and that's usually tied to your own self-interests in your research. But but where do you get started? Well, often encourage people to get other example statements. So someone who's just gotten a job, they're usually willing to share. Again, this gets back to having a network of people you can ask things of. Your advisor at least might be able to find examples for you. A lot of times, and this is very important, what I've put in italics here at the top, recruiting institutions often provide guidance on their websites. So guidance for what should go in research statements and other statements as well. So look at their websites. I'll give some examples in a moment. Let's see. Also, again, in the statement of research, always good to highlight awards. Redundancy is not the worst thing in any application. I mean, you don't want to be too much, but you also have to realize that some faculty who are reviewing these applications are looking at a lot of them, and they might miss some details. So repetition is useful there. Then you can also include a bibliography at the end of in your research statement. Teaching statement. What is your philosophy or approach to teaching? What is your motivation? Why do you want to teach? What is your experience already in classrooms? Maybe you're a teaching assistant or a mentor. What success stories? Do you have success stories particularly that you might describe? You developed a particular homework assignment or project assignment for students that they were very successful with and help them learn the material, for instance. So here, our university provides a lot of tips about what goes into a teaching statement. So if you were applying, for example, to UCI, you could find that and make a more complete teaching statement. The other thing you saw, I'm sure a lot of other universities have similar kinds of pointers on their website. Again, diversity or inclusive excellence has become increasingly important to institutions. So this one often begins, I've seen examples of these begin with a personal story, pardon me, with respect to diversity. Maybe you're allied with a particular underrepresented group, even organizing activities such as this activity today to mentor students and lift up people from different communities. Another place to start is your philosophy towards inclusive excellence. So just maybe your positive attitude or such. And then, so this is going to vary a lot depending on people's backgrounds and their own experiences with inclusive excellence. And so for some candidates, they may talk about what they've done in teaching and whether they've been a mentor to or a leader in a student club. So those kinds of activities are important, more so than just, oh yeah, I told so-and-so to apply to this program. Well, that's not sufficient activity these days. People are looking for deeper participation. And so that's why I say when it's possible, it's very useful to describe specific steps or activities. So, and I probably should say diversity is very diverse. It can be about economic status. It can be about typically underrepresented group in a particular country or program, and that's going to vary from locale to locale. It could be gender diversity in all its definitions today. And it can be the fact that you are an ally with one of these groups, and even if you're not belonging to one of those groups in particular. Again, look for examples of these kinds of statements, and they'll vary a lot, but examples I always find inspire. And you can find guidance again on this particular type of statement on university or institutions' websites. So we have something there as well. I see some people are making some pointers and examples public on the chat. That's great. I really want to encourage people to be sure to network. This begins before your application, at least a year, if not more. So when you're attending conferences, chat with people. I guess I'm jumping already to my last bullet, but have you been nurturing an academic network? Have you been participating in doctoral consortiums or other kinds of workshops or summer schools? Have you chatted with faculty at conferences? Have you attended open houses, like when we actually have conferences in person again? These things, by the way, were not simple for me to do. I was very quiet and shy at the beginning of my career, but in smaller settings, such as workshops, some people got to know me, which was very helpful, more helpful than I probably realized at the time. So people being able to recognize your name or being available to write letters of reference. So going from bottom to top, some aspects of applications that draw attention, familiarity with the candidate's name or the institution they're from, or people at that institution, or the names of the letter writers. And then again, moving back up, do you know someone in the targeted department or program who could inquire about the status of your application? Or does your advisor or does someone in your network know someone? Again, depending on the position, there can be a lot of applications, and yours might not get noticed as much if someone doesn't prod someone. Then let's see, backing up to the top, you might follow up sometimes with a brief and polite email to the department chair if you can't find out who the chair of the recruitment committee is. And I think I'm going a little long, but I am hope you find that advice helpful, and I'd be happy to answer questions about it after the other panelists have their advice.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
So now we will call Ingrid. Do you have slides, Ingrid, you want to share? Please go ahead.
Yes.
While Ingrid is sharing, take on questions, and maybe we'll ask all of them after the last presentation.
Let me sure I'm showing the right one.
No problem.
Okay. You can see the slide or the...
Yeah, that's great. The slides, that's okay.
Okay, because it shows to me that you're seeing the speaker view. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here together with David, Ricardo, and you, Sergio. Thank you, Igor, for the invitation. I'm going to share a view that from a different perspective from David. So I'll start exploring some possible career paths that we can follow. I think David talked a lot about the university path. Here in Brazil, we have federal universities, federal institutes, and also private universities. I think people who are doing their PhD are very familiar with this environment, but there are so many other options for someone who is doing the PhD or a master. So we have research centers like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, but also don't forget that we are computer scientists. So we can also work on software development within teams. I'm not talking only developers, but also people who deal with requirements, product owner positions, or even leadership positions. And also sometimes people forget that another possible career path is we can go for entrepreneurship. This word is really hard to speak in English. Okay, so then the panel is where to find opportunities, and Sergio asked me in particular to talk about Brazil. Well, we know all these websites, and if we Google, we can see that there are many websites nowadays where we can find available opportunities, and also mail lists, in particular in the academic environment. So positions you can find in the internet. So I'll try to bring here information that you can't find on the internet. So first thing is, when should I think about my next steps? So should I think about that in the last year of my PhD? No. From my perspective, you have to start thinking about it even before you start off your PhD or in the first years of your PhD. Why? Because this can tailor how you do your PhD. So if you're seeking for a career within the university, David talked a lot about what's important to be on your application. So you should care about your publications, citations, reviewing papers, writing projects. So then you're going to get experience with tasks that you should do as a professor in the future. But talking only about publications, let's say you say, okay, I got 3 papers at ICSE during my PhD. This is important only within the academic environment. And as I showed, you can think about other career paths that you can explore, and then you should tailor the things you do during your PhD towards these goals. So the PhD is not an ultimate goal, it is training, and you're getting knowledge and experience to do something else in the future. So it's important that you tailor your training, thinking about what you want to do in the future. So for instance, if you're interested in going for research centers are more interested in solving real problems that they face in their context. So probably Ricardo is going to talk about Ericsson. They have a proper domain, and then they are interested in particular types of problems. You can go and explore applied research that is addressed by these research centers you are interested in. And also you can seek for internships. Some of these research centers offer internships, and we have examples. For instance, we interviewed in the podcast Fronteiras da Engenharia de Software, Gustavo Soares. So he was an intern in Microsoft Research, and later he joined the team. And also, for instance, if you want to go for software development, nowadays there are many challenging problems in software development associated with security and distribution and so many others. So you can go for more applied research projects, and always keep up to date to technology. So you don't need to really know how to do everything someone currently working in software development knows, but you need at least to stay up to date in main technologies that are out there. And also, if you want, for instance, to go for leadership positions, it's important for trying to have experience in leading research projects. So there are some institutions that have big projects, and they require leadership, and then you can also get involved with that. And if you would like to go and innovate in the future, create your own company, many universities have incubators, and you can get involved with the events they promote and learn more about how to do a business plan and this kind of thing. And then also think about your thesis topic. So for instance, if you want to go for project management, try to do something with agile approaches that try to understand how people interact, how to resolve conflicts. So it's important for you that to think that your thesis is a contribution to the world, and then depending where you want to go, this might be very helpful in the future because you're going to be expert on that topic. So it's really important to do activities during your PhD that are going to help you to get a job in the future according to what you want. But sometimes it's not easy to get a job outside the university because recruiters sometimes are not very familiar with the CV of a person who didn't follow the usual path, which is gathering experience in many projects and having certifications. So to get a job in these positions, one thing that is very important is networking, which is something that David already said. And we as researchers, we often have the opportunity to get in contact with people from the industry. So, and also people from other universities. So if you have a visiting researcher at your university, or you are at the conferences, at conferences and there are speakers, go there, talk to them. Also, if you need to do experiments for your thesis, go and seek for industrial partners. I think Altigrão said something about that. And usually the companies, from my experience, they are welcome for these experiments, and then they can know a bit about what you do and who you are. Explore also social events. So the key point here, the key message is be a person and not a name on a paper. So why this is important? I have a friend, she is a doctor and a medical doctor. And once she told me, oh, I'm trying to get a residency in this hospital. And it's really hard to get there because they just hire people that they know. And saying that the selection process was not fair. And then I told her, people always want to hire the best people. And when you have simply a CV that is a name on a paper, you have no guarantee that that person is good, is great. You can have two equal CVs and one person is great, the other is not. So it's very important for knowing people so that people know you are great. And then this can open doors, for instance, to get a job in a particular institution or a particular company. So networking, it's very important. And in addition, very often when people think about PhD, they don't realize that while you're getting your PhD, you have training, you receive training to be a researcher. And this is something really, really useful if you want to go for leadership positions where you have to manage teams, lead teams. So this gives you a set of soft skills that can help you in different career paths. So when you are becoming a researcher, I listed here a set of soft skills that you develop. So for instance, you need to read papers and criticize them and understand what's going, what are the limitations, what are the benefits, and this helps you to develop this analytical thinking. Also, for tackling research problems, you develop a problem-solving strategy. So you have to frame problems, sketch a solution, and then know how to evaluate that and assess the outcomes. Also, we need to learn how to communicate. Like you're writing a paper, you always have to convince reviewer too. You need to know how to structure your ideas and explain things in a digestible way. And also, ideally, at the end of your PhD, you are an independent researcher. So we need to know how to seek for solutions and work independently. And these are soft skills that are really helpful in many career paths. And these are characteristics that are desired in many professionals. So when you're applying for a position and you are talking with a recruiter, and talking with people that are interviewing you, it's important for you to show these soft skills as well, because these are desired in many professionals, and you as a person with a PhD have been trained to have these skills. If we are very, very lucky if we go for these websites where you can find positions. Like we have so many options available. People are seeking for professionals. At universities, there are many universities that are expanding nowadays. In Brazil, we have open positions out, like in other countries, they have many positions. But the key thing is that your PhD is not only a piece of paper, a diploma. You need to think about the skills you're developing during these 4 or more years. Think about the hard skills you're developing and the soft skills that you're developing. So tailor your actions to get the skills you need for achieving your future goals. So therefore, you need to have a goal when you're doing your PhD. And for having access to great positions, of course, you can simply apply, send your CV, but building connections, it's crucial for open doors for you and then getting what you want. Okay, so these are my slides. And
Thank you, Ingrid. Please, Ricardo. You don't have slides, right? You can just open your mic and go ahead. You're on mute, Ricardo.
Sorry. No, I was just saying I have a few slides just to
Great. Go ahead.
set the tone here. Yeah, but let me see if I succeed to share my screen. Let's see. And please let me know when you can see it.
Not yet. Now we can see.
Yeah, you probably can see yourselves now.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, I was kind of thinking how I can do things in a way that would be, let's say, entertaining for people join this session. And then my colleagues prepared very nice presentations. I said, well, I need to prepare at least a few slides here on the fly, not to be just talking. So I was doing that while I was listening to you. And then basically my plan was to kind of reflect a little bit on my career itself and use that as an example to the PhD candidates that are attending this presentation here, and maybe inspire them, and also, of course, show different ways and how they can achieve different things in their careers. So I think both David and Ingrid covered very well all the different options and how, let's say, one can achieve those things, what they should do in their early careers and even during the PhD to achieve different things. So basically, in my case here, I would just start saying what I started thinking when, let's say, I was about to finish my PhD, maybe something like 6 months before the defense date. And then basically, okay, I'm about to finish my PhD, so what should I do? And then I started to really think what I really want to achieve in my career. So do I want to continue working as a researcher, or maybe I want to focus on teaching, or maybe I actually want to research, but I want to do applied research, or maybe I want to focus on theoretical research, or maybe I actually want to take a break from research at all, and I will work as a practitioner in industry. Or maybe I have even big ambitions. I want to be a CTO of a big company, or I want to be the CEO of a company. Or as Ingrid said, maybe I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to have my own company. So many questions, and I mean, many different ways to, let's say, continue my career. And then I took one step back and really started to kind of reflect on what I really, let's say, like to do. And as a person, I mean, I myself, I really like to interact with people. I like to have new challenges all the time, and I really love to actually see the outcome of my work, let's say, directly, the impact of things that I do straight away. And then although I really like to work with research, I still do that. But one challenge that I let's say realized when doing my PhD, and I could see the same being faced by many colleagues already, let's say, seasoned researchers, was that they were all very, let's say, bright, doing really great work, but they would have, let's say, a kind of challenge to really have their research applied in real, let's say, setups or real environments. So moving from collaboration with industry to do their own research, but to the next step wherein their outcomes or the results of their investigations were really employed in those companies was something that they really struggled with. So I said, well, would I have, let's say, better opportunity to have my, let's say, research results used by industry if I'm in industry instead? And then I started kind of thinking about that and try to understand how I could actually move into industry and try to work with research inside inside a company like Ericsson, my specific case. So then, of course, I mean, to get there, it was very important to start preparing myself to achieve that, right? So trying to understand what were the job opportunities that would allow me to work in a company like Ericsson, or it could be any other company, but it would give me the chance to work with research, like I like to work in my career for many years. So then I really started to try to find those opportunities and see how I could connect to people and, let's say, start opening the doors in different places so that I could achieve that goal that I set to myself, which was to work with research inside a company. So my, let's say, the most important takeaway here in this specific case is really don't wait to end your PhD to start thinking about what you want to do next. We should really start to do that as early as possible. And to be honest, I mean, when you start doing your PhD, I would expect that you already have an idea what you want to do. I mean, what you want to be, at least in the future. And the PhD should help you to achieve your goals, right? But then you should also try to understand what are the other things you need to do to really achieve your goals, especially if you will not, let's say, continue your career as a lecturer or a researcher in a university, because as very well described by Ingrid, the things that are required, they are a bit different depending on what you want to do. So, well, the takeaway is basically you are the CEO of your career, right? You need to make the calls and live with the decisions we make for the good of the bad. But at the end of the day, one is to try out things and really go ahead and well, take the responsibilities for the different decisions you make during your life. So that's, I think, the same for pretty much everything in our own lives. But the point is, try to start preparing yourself as early as possible and try to find the right things to achieve your goals in your career. So when it comes to where I work nowadays, Ericsson, there are basically, let's say, three main tracks that I think are for, let's say, are interesting for the audience here today. So Ericsson has one sub-organization, it's called Ericsson Research, wherein we have kind of, let's say, set up that's very similar to the one in research institutes. So there are researchers there, and they, of course, they do research that will support Ericsson's core business. but they work as researchers, pretty much like they would work in any research institute. And they have a lot of freedom as well to do their work. And the good thing is that they don't need to, let's say, fight for finance to do their research, because the company itself, let's say, has a budget allocated for those researchers to conduct the research. And of course, they need to do their research within the, let's say, the boundaries that will benefit Ericsson's core business. And then I let's say, added here what is the target if you wants to go in that track. Let's say the highest position one can reach as a researcher in Ericsson is the position as a principal researcher. And then, of course, it's a very nice position. When you achieve that, you have a lot of, let's say, freedom to do things, and you are, of course, highly respected within the company. Then you can be as well an individual contributor and work as a practitioner, let's say, in different domains. And then here you can work, let's say, oh, maybe I want to be a, let's say, a software architect, and I want to, to achieve the top position in my career in the specific track. Then what you can achieve is the, let's say, level of expert. Then here, being an individual contributor, the goal is, of course, a bit different, because not necessarily we're going to work with research, although you can as well work with research in this specific context here. Because in my case, when I joined Ericsson, I didn't join as a researcher. I joined as an individual contributor, actually. And then, and I was lucky enough to get a position that as an individual contributor, I could do research and really impact positively my company. And finally, another track is, I mean, you want to work as a leader. So you want to work in the different leadership teams we have in our company. And then here you're going to work as a manager or as a technical leader. And then here, if you go in this track, of course, you have many different positions you can achieve. But when we look at, let's say, what would be the, let's say, top positions would be like Chief Technology Officer, which of course is very connected to technology. And it's a key role in the executive team of any company, and of course a CEO role as well. But in the case of a CEO, in general, one will need to, let's say, invest a little bit in additional education. It's very often the case one needs to do an MBA to have what is required to, let's say, to work this type of role. So yeah, I think I will stop here. I don't think I need to add any other things, since the other two colleagues covered very well. I mean, where you can find, let's say, open positions and things like that. So I hope what I have shared with you here was interesting enough to call your attention. Thanks a lot.
So let's see if we have questions from the audience. Please, if you want to ask a question, just go ahead and open your mic and talk, or you can write anyway. If nobody has questions, I do have some here. Just give me a second.
There is a question from Armando.
Go ahead, Armando. Wow, really? Oh yeah, sure.
Hi everyone. Just to share with the other colleagues. In my case, I lived in USA in 2009, and I worked as IT consultant in IDB. And it was necessary to get a special visa linked to the company for 12 months. To work that, it was necessary to get the contract before to travel there. So to other guys that want to try experience abroad, like a researcher, what are the steps and cautions to get a job as a PhD researcher in a company, talking about visa, contracts, and other kinds of related documentation? Because I have a lot of colleagues that are questions about this kind of bureaucracy. Got it?
Yes, thank you, Armando. Who wants to answer that?
I can answer. So the key point nowadays is that most countries need people from IT, and generally, if you have a position, an offered position, you can get a visa. So the first step, get a job or an internship. So for instance, if you go for Google, you're going to see they have open calls for positions, and then you apply for it. And these companies, usually they have a department that will help you on that and provide you with all the documentation you need. I don't have much experience in the US, but I can say in Germany is like that. You get, if a company hires you and you in your application you say I need a visa or I need a blue card, then they will provide the documents you need to apply for that. So it's the key step is find your position.
Yeah. Usually any government wouldn't give you a visa if you don't have a job, right? It's usually unless you are like a new citizenship or something like that. Dave, do you want to say anything? It's okay.
Yes. International companies, large international companies, will often sponsor your visa, and if like was said before, there's a great demand. I don't want to name particular companies, but a friend is going through this right now. He works for a very large international company, and his nationality is German, but the company is sponsoring his visa, and he can only work for that company while he's here. But they are also working. Usually, a company will also have a path to get you towards a green card, and so that's one thing. And by the way, I'm speaking from secondhand experience with friends and students. One thing with my students, when they graduate, they have a certain amount of time they can use their student visa to start working for a company. So that's also a trial period for the company. But the company, like the tech companies, especially in the Bay Area, they will start working right away towards the visa path. The UC Irvine actually has a whole workforce around trying to help people get the proper visas once they are actively recruited for and accept a job at Irvine. And then they start working on kind of an initial visa, but then they start working on a more permanent visa. And it can take a few years to get. So the goal, of course, is to get that before the person reaches tenure. But those are some experience I have. I have heard of, I'm aware that another pathway another pathway is to come to the US, enter either a second master's program, for instance, that gets you a student visa, and then you get the opportunity again to have that internship period, and then if everything works out, a pathway towards a more permanent visa. So these are some of the things I know about, and yes, as someone is noting here, it can be very expensive. And it can be more complicated if you're bringing a spouse or children. And but you can try to find out which institutions will pay for these things. Sometimes an institution will pay for something, but an individual will choose to do it on their own just because they feel like they'll get a quicker or more personal process. And that can vary a lot. So yeah, it can be very expensive. And then, as I'm sure everyone's aware, there's constant changes about these regulations. And so one also has to be very, very much on top of what the current restrictions are. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Igor, can you have just one more question? We have time enough? So Adolfo, please go ahead.
We don't have anything coming up next, so it's more on the band list than you, Sergio. So I think we can like have 10 more minutes, 10 extra minutes of questions.
Okay.
If I can just add to the previous topic about visa here in Sweden, and I think in Europe is similar to a large extent in the other EU countries. It's not really like a company needs to sponsor the visa, but it's like in a similar way, like in the US, when you have that visa, you can work with just in that company, and then if you leave the company within a given period, if you find another job, then you can apply again for visa, and then you can continue in the country, let's say. But I think here in Europe in general is easier than in the US to get a visa, I should say.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ricardo. Adolfo, please go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. My question is related to Ingrid's talk, but it's maybe anyone can answer, because she told us that there are several career paths, university, research centers, and so on. But I feel when I finish my PhD, I don't feel I would be able to go into a leadership position, even entrepreneurship. So my question is, maybe PhD programs nowadays, they have to specialize in one or two of those career paths so that there are students, if I want to be a PhD and an entrepreneur, I'm going to this institution. If I want to go to university, I'm going to that institution. What do you think?
I think definitely depending on the institutions, you can get more or less the background needed for this position. So there are some universities in Brazil, for instance, that have large incubators, and then they offer mentors and talks about these topics. But one thing that I think is when I finished my PhD, I think I wouldn't be able to get these positions as well, but not because I think the information wasn't available, the experience weren't available. It was because of lack of knowledge. So I wouldn't be able to give this talk like when I was a PhD student, because nobody told me you should think about your goals very early in your career. It's more like, okay, I'm finishing my PhD. What do I do now? And I wish somebody told me that before. So then I could explore paths and go to these directions. And I think if you think about these things before doing your PhD and you know where you want to go, then you have to do your job looking for the professors, how big are their groups. If you want like a supervisor that is going to be close to you and get more training as a researcher, or if you want to have opportunities to lead research projects, so you should go for a bigger group where there are large research projects. So I think there are institutions that where this is where you can get this training, this kind of training and these experiences. And if you think if you want for leadership positions, it's a great opportunity to lead research projects, because you can fail and not do a very large financial damage in the company. So it's a great opportunity to get some experience, because project management requires learning from mistakes, and then the impact of mistakes in companies sometimes it's much larger, and working under pressure it's also hard. So you can use your PhD for learning that.
Great. Anyone, David or Ricardo, want to add to that?
I think Ingrid. Oh, no, go
ahead.
ahead, David.
No, I was just going to second what Ingrid said, because you know, no one tells you these things, and some people know them already, you know, just from their family background. But a lot of things, you know, you just don't think about it. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm almost ready to graduate. What am I going to do with my life? You know, and then you at least you have to learn how to recast it into a way that is probably comprehensible is the right word to the receiver, to the audience. And if that's a person in industry, that's one kind of resume. They won't know what a CV is. And vice versa, if you're going to research, you need a CV, and you need to promote the skills that are right on there. But yeah, fortunately, there's more increasing opportunities. The other thing, sometimes I hear of people shadowing uh, people in companies. Maybe a personal friend arranges that for you, just so that you can get a little more insight into what's going on there. Yeah, I could tell you about stories where after the fact, I learned about personal friends who had amazing connections, and I just never bothered to talk about that part of their life, you know? So yeah, promote yourself, talk, build this network. Ricardo?
Yeah, exactly, David. I completely agree with you and Ingrid as well. And then, as you said, I mean, a few people, they actually realize that, let's say, by instinct, sometimes, even if they don't have case in their families, like, oh, this person did in this way, I'm gonna try to follow his or her steps. But they have the instinct that, oh, I need to do something to be someone, kind of, if you understand what I mean. But I think it's not everyone is like that, right? So it's really nice when we have the chance to share our, let's say, experiences, and I hope we are helping everyone here, the students, to maybe avoid some of our, let's say, mistakes, we can say so. Try to do things right from the beginning. And then actually connecting to what Patricia asked, Patricia asked what, let's say, were things that in my case, let's say, yeah, how was the process that led to my employment in Ericsson? And then, well, first, I, in a sense, was lucky to be in a university that has a very close connection with industry. So the, let's say, research projects that take place where I did my PhD, they are very applied, and then there is really a strong connection to many different companies, and Ericsson is one of those companies. And then my PhD was done, let's say, in Ericsson, Ericsson being, let's say, one of the use cases. And then I, of course, started to, to know people there. And when I started to realize what I'm going to do next, I started to understand, not only in Ericsson, but of course, including Ericsson, what would be positions that would fit me. So I started to monitor those things and start trying to understand what I would need to do in addition to my PhD to be able to, let's say, be successful in a job application to those companies. And then I realized that, well, I will need to do some, let's say, additional courses to equip me with the, let's say, additional knowledge required to work in the positions that I was applying for, which were related to operational excellence. So basically, where I could actually apply my, let's say, knowledge in software engineering, which was, let's say, the domain where I did my PhD, but also my knowledge of data science, because my PhD actually employed those two domains, let's say. Then then it was, let's say, the perfect type of position, because the focus there was to improve basically how RNG, let's say, develops software. And then, I mean, you can do that in many different ways, right? But I mean, the use of data science is one way to try to make things more effective and efficient. So I started trying to really map, oh, I need to do this in addition to what I'm doing in my PhD now. And then this will help me to achieve my goals. And then I was successful to get a job when I applied in Ericsson. And yeah, I have been very, let's say, glad to be there where I am, and succeeding to continue my career there, and at the same time having the chance to continue doing research. As Sergio said in the beginning, I also hold a position as an adjunct lecturer at BTH, which is the university where I actually did my PhD. And I have a very, very small percentage there, which is basically to work with research. I mean, with supervising master's students and eventually co-supervising PhD students. And as one should expect, trying to overlap what I'm doing in Ericsson with what I'm doing with research with, let's say, the students at BT8. So has been a nice journey so far, I should say.
I just would like to complement something. I have been emphasizing this point about thinking about your goals very early, but I don't want anyone to leave this panel thinking, oh my God, I wasted time in the last 3-4 years. Don't think in that way. Think that everything we go through our experiences, we become great professionals after going through experiences. And it's really great if you look into the past and think that, oh, I would have done this differently, that differently, because this means that you learn from your experiences, and now you have more knowledge to make more informed decisions. So if you have been working towards your goal, a particular goal up to a certain point in your career, and you realize that that's not really what you want to do, never be afraid of pivoting to another direction, because one great thing about being a person with a PhD is that you know how to solve problems, tackle problems, and direct your career to something that is going to make you happy and satisfied.
That's a great point, Ingrid. You said at the end here. Sorry to say interrupt, but actually this connects you. Just to finalize here, sometimes some colleagues at Ericsson ask me kind of what was the, let's say, most important thing your PhD, let's say, gave to you. And then I always say it was the mindset of scientists, and equipped me to solve problems, because it really helps you to approach problems. Is something that will help everyone here to succeed in their careers.
So thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ingrid. We are 15 minutes ahead. Igor told me we couldn't reach that far. Patricia had a question, but Ricardo kind of talked about, so it's kind of answered, but I think Patricia can reach Ricardo, and we can provide you his contacts. Ricardo, let us know when the CEO position is available at Ericsson so we can apply, please. So thank you, everybody. Now I hand back to Igor, right?